Hey guys, first off, I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas or a Happy whatever, and that goes out to the lot of you, including my heathen non-believing brethren out there. I'm wishing for all of you to have something to be grateful for and something to look forward to in this crazy life as red pill men in a blue pill world. After taking some time off, I'm back at the grind, and soon after this talk, I'll be back with the start of my series on the movie Fight Club. Expect some surprises in that one, guys. Moving on to today's talk, welcome to the calamity now popularly known as #MeToo. I did a talk linked on the current sexual assault and sexual harassment hysteria back in November when all the attention was on Harvey Weinstein. I did that in anticipation of all the high-profile liberal asshats and conservatives who would go right under the bus as the femi-frenzy went into overdrive. And I was not disappointed.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one gone, and another one gone. Another one bites the dust. Hey, hey, I'm gonna get you too. Another one bites the dust.
Now, some people may feel like that was a little heartless. And you know what? They're right. I have grown a little heartless about the self-inflicted blue pill misery of pompous blowhards who never gave a rat's ass what was happening to their fellow man, as long as they were fat with cash and living in the dream state of being above it all. These are the same people, rich and powerful movers and shakers, who have buried their noses in feminist ass till cheeks met cheeks for politics and popularity at cocktail parties, while good men died like dogs right at their feet. So yeah, watching these prigs fall over like so many dominoes doesn't exactly qualify as a bummer in my life. Matter of fact, I'm enjoying the show. I'm particularly enjoying the outrage of Tavis Smiley, who is now railing publicly about being fired by PBS without any kind of fair hearing. He's moaning about how this has, and I quote, gone too far, linked to anyone who will listen, which isn't very many people. Yeah, Tavis, it has gone too far. And I guess you noticed that when? When they crawled up your ass? Ended your professional life and totaled your feminist ass-kissing legacy like a train plowing into a Volkswagen? Seriously, I admire Smiley for fighting back, but just who did he think he was working for? A voice for men? PBS, driven in large part by our tax dollars, is one of the main players in furthering the agenda that eventually, finally, bit him in the ass. Smiley, a feminist suck-up from years back, knows this. And so I'm supposed to take pity on him or feel outraged at the way he was treated? I don't think so. Sorry, but I've already seen too many men crucified who never took part, by omission or otherwise, in promoting these witch hunts. And in fact, I've known good men who went down trying to fix the problem. So as far as I'm concerned, this not only hasn't gone too far, it hasn't gone far enough. And praise Jesus, the best is yet to come. Not only are we going to get to see a whole lot more men bend over and take a great big fat one for the team in the days ahead, the payback for #MeToo craziness isn't going to end there. The real repercussions will be played out over the next generation or two. You see, in the midst of all the mayhem, another highly relevant story has risen to the occasion. Vice President Mike Pence strolls into the landscape, cool as a cucumber. As you may have noticed, Vice President Pence has been complete Teflon, untouchable, even as allegations are flying through the air at everyone else like stray bullets. There is no grand secret to Pence's success. The good vice president has rules about women. He never allows himself to engage socially with them while alone. Never with any of them save his wife. and he won't attend any events that feature alcohol without her there either. He is obviously practiced at this to the point that it is woven into his standard operating procedure. Thus, he remains Mr. Clean in the political arena, his future and his reputation protected. Let's call this hashtag Mike Pence rules. There has already, and quite ironically, been hit pieces on him about this in the media. The Washington Post, linked, made a mentally retarded attempt at doing a number on him, implying that his motive for being averse to women was that he didn't trust himself around them or some such other nonsense. The article, penned by some cuck named Paul Waldman, displayed the Olympic-level mental gymnastics required to come up with the narrative. Let's take just a moment to consider this pair of rules Mike Pence has for himself, writes Waldman. He obviously thinks that every interaction he has with a woman is so sexually charged that it's safe to be around them only if there are other people there too. Now, I'm sure this probably made sense to Waldman and to WAPO's regular readers in the same way that 2 + 2 = 5 makes sense to that crowd. But of course, like with every other matter of sexual politics, they are all wildly off the mark. And that's probably a good thing, too, because while they conjure up derisive pseudo-Freudian attempts to shame men like Vice President Pence as being fearful of human sexuality, other men will pick up on the wisdom of his actions. Vice President Pence won't be alone with women for one simple reason. It's because he knows full well that women are dangerous. It's hard to imagine anyone doubting that anymore, but for anyone who does, they can just grab the latest headline in the current news cycle. And unless we're in the middle of bombing North Korea, the headline will prove them dead wrong. Well, unless they're dead stupid. I'm not usually in the business of making predictions, but I've got no problem at this point in time saying that I see Mike Pence rules carving themselves into the social landscape deeply and permanently. It's nothing new to me, mind you. I started leaving the door open 30 years ago when counseling women with drug and alcohol problems, especially borderlines. Even in the blue pill world of mental health services, nobody questioned why I did it. They already knew. Again, that was 3 decades ago. Today we have entered an age where Mike Pence rules will be invoked across the board in all areas of life. Of course, feminists will rage about it. They want men in vulnerable positions and will scream about oppressive sexism when men protect themselves. But it won't do them much good. They will have to try, though. You see, the thing is that as the inherent danger that most women now represent becomes increasingly apparent to men, the only rational response available to them is risk aversion. That doesn't just mean that men will be more careful around women. It doesn't mean just being more prone to covering your ass at parties and other social situations. It involves all areas of life where men interact with women. The big one that comes to my mind is employment. Sooner or later, and I'm thinking sooner, men are going to figure out that your employee can't file a sexual harassment charge if you don't hire her in the first place. Now, how funny is that? For the past 50 years or so, we've heard feminists bellyache about employment discrimination against women in hiring, despite the fact that it didn't happen that much. Well, now it's going to be happening for real. With the advent of Me Too hysteria, I can already hear the sound of tens of thousands of employment doors quietly closing in women's faces. And as one of my followers on Twitter conveyed to me, he's going to, and I quote, slam the damn thing shut, unquote. Here's the rub, guys. Every time a female job applicant walks in the door, the employer, who may well be female, has two possible risks to consider. One, if they don't hire her, she may sue them for sexual discrimination. Or two, if they do hire her, she may sue them for sexual harassment or something else along those lines. Personally, if I'm an employer, I'm going with risk number one. I'm going to discriminate against women in hiring, and I think anyone with two brain cells to rub together is going to do the same thing. Complaints about employment discrimination are bothersome, but routine. The EEOC stays busy with thousands of such complaints, most of them bullshit. Companies I've worked for in the past considered small settlements on these cases just the cost of doing business. However, getting sued for anything involving alleged sexual offenses against a woman is bothersome, expensive, and get your company all over social media with something like a Me Too pinned to the company logo. When your company gets accused of sexually predatory behavior, and if you hire enough women, it will, heads will roll. Investors will run for the hills, and the first thing the higher-ups will do is find a scapegoat to crucify. You can bet on it. The solution is simple and easy. You take the risk on employment discrimination over being publicly stained as a rape apologist enabler employer. You don't need to have Lena Dunham interviewing in your office to know to leave the door wide open and file 13 the application the minute the interview is over. In the future, all female employment prospects are Lena Dunham. You see, when you set aside the hashtags, the fake news coverage, and the pathetic spectacle of 1,000 talking heads competing with each other to be the most outraged at men misbehaving, we have that old nemesis called the truth. And the truth informs employers that the current hysteria wasn't sparked by women running down the street, bloody, dresses torn, and pleading for help. The Me Too movement emerged out of the shadows, quiet and calculated, ghosts from decades past with Gloria Allred in tow, mugging for cameras and looking for money. And it leaves the true victims, the accused, no way to defend themselves in the arena of public opinion. The arena of public opinion believes the woman every goddamn time. That's what Me Too is going to do for women. It's going to cut them down by the thousands without them ever knowing what happened. And as entertaining as comical as the 100 or so stories of arrogant, hypocritical men being marched to the guillotine is, it is nothing compared to what's coming. There is literally no way of stopping it. Nobody will have to suggest to employers, though I will as vociferously as I can, that the way to reduce risk is to reduce the presence of women. The Mike Pence rules will be written silently into their practices. It won't, of course, prevent all women from being hired, but it means with complete certainty that there is no such thing anymore as equally qualified when it comes to hiring. Two prospective employees, one male and one female, may have near identical qualifications, identical experience, identical education, identical prospective value to a company, identical everything, except one of them is a woman who comes with substantially more risk. If employers are acting in the best interest of their organizations, which is their responsibility, by the way, they will choose less exposure to risk every time they can. Untold numbers of them will find a way to hire the man. Hashtag hard to blame them. None of this is really surprising. Feminism has been defined by women shooting themselves in the foot and pressuring others to do the same for half a century. They have driven literally millions of women out of the homes they really wanted to be in, out of the futures that they wanted and into millions of dead-end, mid-level, life-sucking jobs as corporate slaves. They've convinced women that their children are better off in daycare and without fathers, that child support and alimony are preferable to an intact family. And now, apparently not content with fucking up women's old lives as wives and mothers, they've set their sights on fucking up their new lives as wage earners and taxpayers. Hashtag Me Too and most every other feminist initiative is screaming to the world that women are dangerous and to be avoided. Its end result will be to damage and diminish what little women have left. And women, writ large, will band together to make sure it happens, or at the very least remain silent in collusion. Absolutely stunning. Mind you, I don't say any of this out of concern for this preponderance of the female demographic. I've no more concern for the hashtagging lot of them than I do for the likes of Harvey Weinstein and company. I don't know how other people will handle this, but I do know my own plans. I'm making popcorn and getting ready for the ruckus. This is going to be one hell of a show. And that is it for this talk. Thank you all for showing up here and for supporting the work that I'm doing here at An Ear for Men. It's really appreciated. As always, I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.